Welcome csc102 class, either the online section or the on-campus, which is now the online section for spring 2020. I'm going to do Ex01, our first Excel assignment, and I'm going to try to do it in Google Docs. I do have videos for working in Microsoft Excel, but I'm going to try to do this for the first time using, actually not Google Docs, it's going to be Google Sheets. So I'm going to try to go through the steps of doing this. I haven't really rehearsed it, so we'll see what happens. And here's instructions. These are the old instructions up here, so I'll open these up just to follow because I don't need to go through all the notes because things are going to be a little bit different in Google Sheets, but at least I could see what it's going to look like. We're going to have a spreadsheet that looks something like this, and then we're going to make two charts. And these probably aren't very good notes either because everybody only makes one chart because I only have a picture of one chart, but the whole idea is to make two charts. We're going to make one chart from the cities and the totals at the bottom, and then we're going to make another chart that uses the fundraising by activity. And I guess maybe looking at this you wouldn't know that either, so I'm going to do two charts on this when we're done in Google Sheets. So I'll try to follow this as much as I can. Now I'll go back here because there's a link on here. This is the work file, which is usually under coursework, but I put it here as well, so if you need to download it. And I'm going to right click to download it because if I just click on it, it might open in Excel, and I don't want to do that. So I want to download it and then open it in Google Sheets. So I'm going to right click and do Save Link As. I made a folder here for csc102, W1, and G2, so I'll just save it in there for now. So that's where I'm going to save it. And you could save it anywhere. You could leave it in your downloads. You could save it on your desktop. It doesn't matter. But that's where I'm going to save it right now. So I just want to download it first, and then I'm going to upload it to Google Sheets. So I'm going to open a new tab here, and I'm in Google Chrome. So I will look for Google Sheets. And you might not know what to do here, but if you go down to the folder, you can open up, or you could put it in Drive as well, but I'm going to go to the folder here, and they have an upload section, and it says select a file from your device. So instead of dragging it, I'll just click on this right now and go navigate to it. And I tried doing it before, so that's where I'm going, but you would have to navigate and find this file, and it's going to open up the Excel file, and then you're going to work in Google Sheets. And here it is, and that wasn't that hard. The first thing I'd like you to do is to highlight over this and put your name and initial in there. You might even put your section, and this is our kind of Excel Google Sheets file. Now we are in Google Sheets because it says add-ons right now. Sometimes you might see like an Excel icon there, but we're in Google Sheets, and we're basically working with these things up here are the columns, and these numbers down here are the rows, and each individual box is called a cell. So this would be cell A2. Now in Excel, it shows you the name of the cell. It shows you the cell reference like A2 and A1. It doesn't do that in Google Sheets. And that's not a big deal, but I just want you to know it doesn't do that. So we have to be careful when we look at this stuff. And maybe I'll zoom in a little bit here so we see things a little bit easier. A couple things to point out. This thing is this lifetime fundraising summary text is actually in cell A2. But it carries over into B and C. It's kind of like if you're sitting, I don't know, at a concert or somewhere, or church, anywhere where somebody might not be sitting next to you, and you might spread out and put your stuff next to you as long as nobody's there. But as soon as somebody sits next to you, you have to move over and stay in your own seat. That's why over here, Phonathon doesn't really fit in there, but they have to stay in their own seat because there's somebody right next to them. But if there's nothing in the cell next to you, it looks like it stretches out over multiple cells, but it really doesn't. This is in A2 because if I click on B2, there's nothing in it. And if I click on C2, there's nothing in it because this is where it shows what's in it. So this stuff is in A2. So I just want to point that out, just like this is in A8 and this is in B8. Now it doesn't show you the cell reference, and it would be helpful if it did. But again, there's going to be a lot of things here that aren't that helpful, but we're going to get used to it. So we're going to try and format this thing like this, kind of using some of this shading and coloring and sizing and things like this. You can see that in the top here, we're going to merge these cells. We're going to merge all the cells going across A through H. We're going to merge them, and we're going to do these one at a time. We can't merge two rows because they'll all become one. So we're going to merge row 1 and then row 2, And then we'll kind of format this stuff down here, and we're going to add some things up. So let's get back to here and do some of that stuff. So actually, this is actually merged already, and maybe I'll edit the file so it's not. This one's merged already, and if it wasn't, you can actually go over here. See this little thing with arrows? If you unmerge it, this is how it is initially. Initially, it's like that, and then you would actually highlight across here all the way to H, and then you would say merge all. And it's centering automatically. Now, this is where you can center it. It might go like that initially, but you can center it here. Now, for this one down here, I'm going to do the same thing. So that'll help us kind of understand what I was talking about. So I'm going to highlight cells A through H. So I have those, whatever, 8 cells selected going across. And I'm going to use this thing here that says merge all. Now, merge all horizontally, merge all, they should do the same, unless you're selecting multiple cells up and down, but we're not going to do that. So I could do merge horizontally. It should do the same thing. Now, it didn't center it. Excel has a merge and center function. This does not, I don't believe. So then I'll just have to center it afterwards. And that's all we have to do there. And then these things here, notice how they're getting cut off. Now, we're going to add some things up and put them here, but since they're cut off, what you could do, you can go in between here and kind of stretch out these cells if you want to, or stretch out the columns. These are the columns going across the top. Or another thing you can do, if you highlight it, even the column letters at the top, the column headings, and then if you like right click on these, they have something called resize columns. And if you go to resize columns, you can either put in a number, which you may not know what number to put in, but if you use fit to data, it'll kind of do something called autofit. In Excel, they call it autofit. And I'll hit OK, and you can see what happened there. Now, I'm not sure why it made these so big, so I'll go back and make these a little smaller. I'm not sure why it's putting so much space in there. But everything's autofit right now, and we're going to fix some of this stuff too. This is over to the right because they're numbers, and text by default goes to the left. But we're going to center all these things eventually. But before I do anything else, I'm going to highlight these, and I'm going out of order in the steps, but since this formatting is a little off here, I'm going to highlight this. Now, we don't have anything in the totals over here on the right, and we don't have anything at the bottom, but I'm still going to highlight that because we're going to have to format it anyway, and we're going to format it as money or as currency. So there is a $sign here. That puts the $sign right next to the number. Now, there is another type of formatting if you go to this 1, 2, 3 here, and if you use accounting, it kind of aligns the $sign off to the left. So it doesn't put the $sign right by the number. So it keeps it in one place and it aligns things a little bit better. You could do either one. I'll use it as accounting right now and just see how that works. And notice I even highlighted the cells that I'm not using yet so that they're formatted that way as well. And then these things up at the top, I'm going to highlight these and just center them over top of the columns that they're on. So there's just some centering I could use there. And also, some things I'm going to do here, I'm going to move this cell down a little bit, and I think I can right-click on here and put like a cell height. They have resize row. Now, you might not know what to use, and I'm not sure in the instructions what I say, but maybe 30 in here. And then what I'll do is change the formatting of the SaveSable. Now, I'll just go to where the font is, and I'll use this Roboto slab. If you have this, you could use this, or you could use Cambria, or you can use Georgia. I like this Roboto slab. It looks nice. And maybe I'll take it up to like maybe 18. That might be a little big. You could highlight here and go 16. And if you want to change the color, I'm going to use kind of a dark blue. I'm going to try to use this blue over here, the third column from the right, and then the last one, I'll make that like a nice dark blue. And you can make this bold too. And you can also align this up and down. There's a little alignment thing here. I think it's this one here, vertical align. And this centers it up and down, so there's the same amount of space on the top and bottom. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm just going to stretch this down a little. And remember, you don't have to highlight the text in here. You could just click on the cell. And I'm going to make this bold and maybe make it like 12 point, something like that, maybe 14. I think I may have used 14 in the instructions. And I'll also align this up and down vertically. So that looks okay like that. And if I go back to my sample, that looks like what we need to do. And then I'm going to make this dark blue and make these things white at the top. And it looks like I right align total. So let me try to do that. We'll format some of this, then we'll get the numbers in there. So I'll highlight this. Now, again, I am going out of order, but I'm going to format this. Now to fill the background, use the paint bucket. And I'll use that same dark blue. And then I'm going to use a white color, just like we did on the calendar. And I'll make sure the text is white. And I'll make sure it's bold so it even stands out more on a dark background. So that looks pretty good so far. So that's all I'll do with the formatting right now. Now I'll focus on the numbers now, and then we'll get back and kind of finish off the formatting, and then we'll make some charts. But what I want to do down here is we need to add these things up. So the way you add them up is you click in the cell where you want it added up. So we want to sum up all these numbers that are above it. Now in Excel, it automatically looks for cells above it to add up. Now here, I don't think it does. So what we're going to do here is go to Sum, and it'll make a little formula, and all that you have to do is highlight the cells that you want added up. And you can see it's saying equal sum B4 through B8. So it's using those cells, B4 through B8. And notice that they use a colon indicating through. You don't use a dash because that would look like a minus sign. So that it's saying equal sum B4 through B8, and then you just hit your enter key. And if for whatever reason, if you're still seeing the formula here, there is like a view, it says show formulas. If you ever are not seeing your numbers for whatever reason, if you can't see numbers here, just go to view and uncheck show formulas so that you can see the numbers there. The formula will show up here in the formula bar, but you want the numbers to show up here. Now this isn't a real number here, it's actually being created by a formula, meaning if you change one of these numbers, this number will change. So it's you can't just type these in. So don't try to cheat and just type in a number here. And speaking of cheating, you can make this real easy too. You don't have to do this for all these other cells. I mean, you could practice. You could go here and say, let me try that again, and go over here to this little sigma thing and sum it up and highlight these things and then hit enter. You could do that, and that worked. But another thing you could do, if you click on this cell and you go right on the corner here and get that little thin plus sign, it's called the fill handle in Excel. But if you hover over here with that little thin plus sign and you drag across, go straight across, and I'll go just under that one for now and leave go, it's actually going to copy the formula. So if you go on this one, it's going to say D4 through D8. If you go on this one, it's going to say E4 through E8. It's called a relative reference. So it's copying the formula from one cell to the next. It understands that, hey, I'm not in the same column anymore, so I'm going to update it. And that's why it's making these numbers correct, because it knows that it's copying the formula and it has to update the cells that it's using. So if I click on this one, it's using G4 through G8. So it's very smart. It's a very smart program, you know, this and Excel. Now, if I want to total up here, I would be totaling the ones across. So if I tried that again, I'd go to my auto sum here, and they call that auto sum in Excel, but here we're just going to the sigma and just using sum. And again, it's looking for the columns. That's why it has a little cursor in there. So if you just highlight the columns that you want summed up, all of those, and then just hit enter. And if you ever mess up something, hit escape. If you hit escape, it'll kind of like cancel what you're doing. So if you ever got messed up or you start clicking and things are going haywire, just hit escape. But I'm going to try that again. I'm going to use sum, and again, highlight on these, the cells that I want. Don't take these cells, just make sure you're the ones with the numbers. And then I'm going to hit enter, and that totals up. It should be G4, and it's B4. So those are B4 through G4 are the cells that I summed up. And then I don't have to do that again. I could just hover over this little blue corner with that little fill handle and just drag down, and it'll add everything up. Now, what it adds up here is the same thing that it adds up over there, because the one in the corner is adding up everything. So it's like $1 million here, 1.5 million. So that's what you should have once you add everything up. So everything's added up here. In the original instructions, I have you add these numbers in here, but that's kind of a pain in here, so I won't have you add the number. I already put them in for the file that I gave you. So everything's added up, and all you could do here is just kind of make things look nice. Now, you could go here and just highlight a couple cells here, and if you want to just use the paint bucket and just use like a light blue. I'll use a little bit darker blue, and then I'll go at the end and do the same one over here, and I'll use a little bit darker blue. Now again, I'm using this little paint bucket, and I use this one, and then I'll go across, and I'll use a lighter one at the bottom. And again, I use the paint bucket, and I'll use the one up here, so that's a little lighter. And then if you want to highlight these and kind of alternate, I'm going to highlight that. And then I could hold my, if you're on Windows, use Control. If you're on Mac, use Command. But I highlighted one row, or just actually I highlighted 6 cells. And then I'm holding down my Control key or my Command key. I'm on a Mac, so I'm using my Command key. But if you're on Windows, you use your Control key. And then highlight these, and that keeps the selection active. And what I could do here is use even a lighter blue. You might say, well, that's the lightest blue. I'd want to go here to custom, and I go into blue, or I have to move this thing into the blue hues. And now I just kind of look for a kind of real light blue and hit OK. And if I click off, I could see it better, and you can see that's a lighter blue in there. So that looks okay. And then I could go here and maybe make this bold. I could maybe make these numbers bold because these are the totals. And I might even make these bold at the bottom because they're the totals. I'll highlight these and make them bold. And I guess that looks okay. Let me look at my sample again, and that looks pretty close. The only thing I think I did here was align this right, which I could just go here and do that and put those to the right. So that looks pretty good. So that's basically our spreadsheet. Now, let's say you wanted to put borders on this or something, you could do that. You could highlight this stuff here. If you didn't want the top part, you could put a border around the whole thing. Let's see, I'll just highlight all the cells that I want, and they do have a little border thing here. And I think they have a border that goes all around like that. And if you want to make it, you know, like a dark blue and make it a little thicker, that's the color. And then make it a little thicker. I have a nice thick border around it. Then I could even go in here for whatever reason. If I wanted to go in here and put little borders, I could put smaller borders in here. I think I could do that separately and put borders in there. And now I'm going to make these thinner. So I'll make these a little thinner. So that way I can still keep the thicker border on the outside and the thinner ones on the inside. And what we're going to do next is make some tables from here. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll do that as part 2 of the video, and that won't take long at all. But this is the spreadsheet part in Google Sheets. And again, I don't have to save because I'm working in Google Sheets. And when I'm done, I'm going to share this, but this is the spreadsheet part. So again, just to review, we did some auto summing down here. We did some formatting where we did some kind of background colors here as well as text colors. We merged cells, we aligned things, and we even copied some cells where we did some auto summing, and we adjusted the size of these. You can always go back and make them a little bit smaller if you want. You can highlight all of these if you needed them a little bit smaller. If you highlighted these and you right clicked up here and you had resize columns, it has 104. If you wanted to make it 100 and just see what that looks like, you know, make them a little bit tighter, and that's it. So that's the end of part 1. For part 2, we'll make the 2 charts on here using Google Sheets.